As a child, Nia had always looked up at her mother, Mumbi, with wide, hopeful eyes, longing for the love and affection she saw other children receive. Mumbi, with her flawless skin and brightly adorned clothes, was like a figure carved from stone, beautiful, distant, and untouchable. Nia would sit quietly in the corner of their home, watching her mother prepare for the endless stream of visitors, her heart aching for even a small moment of acknowledgement. But Mumbi's eyes were always focused on herself, her reflection in the mirror, the men who came to woo her, and the admiration she commanded from the village. There was never a moment spared for the small girl who lingered in the shadows. Nia would sometimes hear the other children talk about their fathers. She imagined what it would be like to have a father of her own, a man who would scoop her up into his arms and tell her stories, who would love her in a way Mumbi never had. But her questions about him, about who he was, where he had gone, were always met with stony silence. When she was brave enough to ask, Mumbi's sharp look was enough to make her stop, and the subject would die as quickly as it had surfaced. In Nia's world, her father was nothing but a ghost, a man whose absence was never explained, whose presence was never missed by her mother. As she grew older, Nia learned to stop asking. She learned to live with the absence, to carry the weight of her father's unknown story in silence. Mumbi's indifference became normal, and Nia slowly began to disappear into the background of her mother's life. While Mumbi basked in the glow of her beauty and the attention of her admirers, Nia watched, a silent shadow who had long ago stopped hoping for a place in the light. By the time Nia reached adulthood, the little girl who had once craved her mother's affection had hardened. Years of neglect had turned that longing into something else: resentment, anger, and a quiet determination to never let herself be as invisible as she had been growing up. Mumbi continued to collect admirers, but Nia no longer cared. She had built walls around her heart, thick and impenetrable, to keep out the pain of being unloved. Nia watched her mother begin to change in ways she never expected. After years of fleeting romances and empty affairs, Mumbi had finally settled into something more serious. The man who had captured her attention was Okello, strong, confident, and younger than Mumbi, but undeniably captivated by her presence. At first, Nia thought he would be like all the others, someone who drifted into her mother's life, dazzled by her beauty, and then left without a trace. But Okello lingered. Mumbi had been dating him for months now, and something about this relationship was different. Okello wasn't just another admirer basking in her mother's glory. He seemed to genuinely enjoy being with Mumbi, as if he was mesmerized not just by her beauty, but by something deeper, something that even Nia struggled to see. Then one evening, after a lavish dinner in their home, Okello asked Mumbi to marry him. It was unexpected, a bold move from a man who seemed unfazed by Mumbi's untouchable aura. Nia watched as her mother's eyes sparkled with delight, her laughter filling the room. Mumbi, who had always acted as though she didn't need anyone, said yes without hesitation. The preparations for the wedding began almost immediately, and Nia, despite the growing knot in her stomach, was roped into helping. The wedding planning was a whirlwind of activity, and Nia found herself reluctantly drawn into it. Mumbi reveled in the attention, showing off the expensive fabrics, the elaborate decorations, and the grand plans for the ceremony. Nia was there, helping her mother pick out flowers, arrange seating, and finalize details for the event of the year. But as she worked alongside them, an uneasy feeling began to settle in Nia's chest. Okello was different from Mumbi's other lovers, and she could see it in the way he looked at her mother. There was respect in his eyes, admiration even. But then, there were the moments when his gaze would linger on Nia, brief but intense, as if he were seeing her in a way no one else had before. It made her heart race and her thoughts swirl in confusion. On the day of the wedding, Nia watched as Mumbi walked down the aisle in her stunning gown, radiating elegance and power. Okello's face was alight with pride as he took Mumbi's hand and pledged his love in front of the entire village. Nia should have felt joy for her mother, but instead, something darker twisted inside her. The weight of years of neglect, of being cast aside, of watching her mother bask in the attention that had never been hers, settled heavy in her chest. As Mumbi and Okello exchanged vows, Nia's mind was elsewhere. The wedding only seemed to emphasize the chasm between her and her mother. But it was Okello's glance that sent a thrill through her, the way he smiled at her when he thought no one was looking. It was in that moment that Nia knew something was building between them. After the wedding, everything shifted. Mumbi radiated happiness in her new role as a wife, her laughter echoing through the house like a melody. She glided around, wrapped in her bliss, preparing meals for Okello, filling their home with warmth and light. Nia felt a knot of irritation tighten in her chest as she watched her mother thrive in a way she never had for her. While Mumbi was busy with her newfound joy, Nia couldn't shake the unsettling changes occurring between her and Okello. He sought her out more often, always finding excuses to be near her, to speak with her when Mumbi wasn't around. His touch lingered a moment too long. His words dripped with kindness that felt too intimate, and his eyes were always watching her. Okello had become the center of her mother's world, but now he was stepping into hers as well. The temptation was impossible to ignore, and the more time they spent together, the more Nia realized the power she held over him. She had never felt anything like it before. This dangerous thrill that came from knowing she could take something so precious from her mother. The first real moment of tension came during a warm evening on the porch, where the air was thick with the sweet scent of blooming jasmine. Mumbi had gone to a neighboring village for a gathering, leaving them alone together. Nia could feel the charged atmosphere as she sat on the steps, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Okello joined her, the warmth of his presence drawing her in like a moth to a flame. As they spoke, laughter spilled freely between them, but the tone shifted when their hands brushed accidentally, sending jolts of electricity racing up Nia's arm. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, the weight of everything they had been dancing around hung heavy in the air. It was then that Nia made a choice. In that intoxicating moment, she leaned closer, the whisper of her breath barely reaching his ear. "You know we could have something special," she murmured, her voice a blend of innocence and audacity. Okello hesitated, his brow furrowing as he struggled with the gravity of her words. But there was a flicker of desire in his eyes that urged her on. With a boldness she didn't know she possessed, Nia closed the distance between them, her lips brushing against his. It was soft at first, a tentative exploration, but it quickly ignited into something more passionate, more reckless. The kiss deepened, and the world around them faded away, leaving only the two of them wrapped in a cocoon of heat and urgency. With each secret meeting, the thrill of danger wrapped around her like a shroud. They met in hidden corners of their home, in the lush embrace of the garden, under the cover of darkness where the moonlight became their only witness. Their encounters were filled with a dizzying mix of fear and exhilaration, each stolen moment an act of defiance against the life Mumbi had imposed on her. Nia found herself lost in the allure of what they were doing, reveling in the adrenaline that coursed through her veins. It was a twisted game, one where she held all the cards. As Okello's hands explored the contours of her body, she felt a sense of empowerment bloom within her. This was hers, something she had taken for herself, something that was entirely separate from Mumbi. Nia was no longer the shadow cast by her mother. She was the woman claiming what she wanted, taking what had been denied to her for so long. The taste of forbidden fruit was intoxicating, and with each encounter, her resolve grew stronger. But along with that power came a deeper complexity. Nia found herself grappling with feelings she hadn't expected to surface. As much as this was about revenge, a part of her began to see Okello not just as a pawn in her game, but as someone who genuinely cared for her. The way he looked at her, the way he made her feel, alive and vibrant, created a tangled web of emotions that both exhilarated and terrified her. And with each passing day, as she continued to slip deeper into this dangerous affair, the thrill of reclaiming her power grew more intoxicating, overshadowing the guilt that lingered just beneath the surface. Mumbi had always prided herself on her keen intuition, and as the days turned into weeks, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. It was subtle at first, the way Nia seemed more animated, her laughter echoing through the house with an unfamiliar brightness. Mumbi noticed the glances that passed between her daughter and Okello, the small exchanges that seemed charged with an unspoken tension. A mother's instinct can be a powerful thing, and Mumbi's was ringing alarm bells. At first, she dismissed her suspicions, convincing herself that Nia was simply blossoming into adulthood. After all, it was a time for young women to explore their identities, to experience love and passion. Yet deep down, Mumbi couldn't shake the sense that Nia was holding something back, a secret hidden behind her bright smile. The thought gnawed at her, stirring a familiar bitterness that had long lain dormant. Determined to uncover the truth, Mumbi began to observe them more closely. She noticed how Nia would disappear for hours, how Okello would linger after dinner, helping Nia with trivial tasks around the house. The unease grew into a quiet storm within her, and Mumbi resolved to confront it head-on. The evening had settled softly over the land, a hush blanketing the world outside. Mumbi returned home earlier than usual, her heart heavy with the weight of her suspicions. Determined to confront the truth, she quietly entered the house. As she moved through the dimly lit corridors, her pulse quickened. She passed by Nia's room, the door slightly ajar, and glanced inside. A flicker of movement caught her eye. She leaned in closer, peering through the gap. What she saw made her breath hitch in her throat. There was Nia, her daughter, her only child, entwined in Okello's arms. They lay on the bed together, lost in their own world, completely unaware of the storm brewing just outside the door. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. Mumbi felt her heart drop, an icy grip of disbelief wrapping around her chest. The betrayal sliced through her like a knife, and she stood frozen, staring at the scene before her. Nia's laughter, once a sound of innocence, now felt like a cruel taunt. Okello's hands traced her daughter's skin with a tenderness that was meant for Mumbi alone. Mumbi's mind raced. All the signs she had dismissed, the whispers of doubt she had ignored, now flooded back with painful clarity. This was no fleeting glance or innocent smile. This was a full-blown affair. The realization crashed over her like a wave, and she felt an overwhelming surge of emotions, anger, betrayal, and a deep, aching sadness that threatened to swallow her whole. With her heart pounding in her ears, Mumbi pushed the door open, her body moving on instinct. The sudden sound broke the silence, and both Nia and Okello looked up, their expressions morphing from surprise to horror. Mumbi stood in the doorway, a storm of fury and heartbreak reflected in her eyes. "What is this?" Mumbi's voice trembled, barely containing the whirlwind of emotions roiling within her. She could feel her heart racing, a mixture of rage and disbelief threatening to spill over. "How could you do this to me?" Nia scrambled to pull away from Okello, her face flushed with shame and guilt. "Mama, she began, but Mumbi cut her off. Don't! I don't want to hear your excuses. You're my daughter. How could you betray me like this, in my own home? Mumbi's voice rose, filled with the pain of betrayal, each word laced with bitterness. Okello sat up, the guilt written all over his face. Mumbi, I can explain. Explain? She interrupted. What could you possibly say that would make this okay? She turned her gaze back to Nia, her heart breaking at the sight of her daughter's tear-filled eyes. And you, how could you betray your own mother? Nia felt the weight of her mother's disappointment crashing down upon her, the guilt pooling in her stomach. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. It just happened, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Just happened, Mumbi echoed, the incredulity thick in her voice. You think this is just something that happens? You think this is some kind of game? Nia's eyes filled with tears, her heart racing as she grappled with the gravity of her actions. I was lonely, Mama. You were never there for me. I felt invisible, and then Okello, he saw me. He made me feel alive. Mumbi's heart twisted painfully at her daughter's words. Years of neglect flooded back, but it didn't excuse what Nia had done. So you thought betraying me was the answer? She said, her voice thick with hurt. You thought taking my husband would make things better? Nia shook her head, the guilt tearing at her insides. I wanted to take back control. I wanted to be seen, to feel wanted. You've always been so focused on yourself, your beauty, your power, while I've been left in your shadow. Mumbi's anger dimmed slightly, but the pain of Nia's betrayal was too fresh, too raw to ignore. As Nia stood before her, trembling and vulnerable, Mumbi felt the rage that had ignited in her heart begin to cool, replaced by a profound sorrow. The trust between them had been shattered, and the weight of it all pressed heavily on her chest. You have no idea what you've done, she whispered, her voice breaking as tears spilled down her cheeks. Nia's heart clenched, but she steeled herself. Mama, I know I hurt you, but I can't change how I feel. I love Okello. He makes me feel alive in a way I never have before. Mumbi's eyes widened in disbelief. You think love can fix this? You've taken everything from me. Okello interjected, his voice calm but firm. Mumbi, I never intended to hurt you, but the truth is, Nia and I have something special. I want to be with her, and I believe we can all find a way forward. For a moment, silence hung in the air, heavy with unsaid words and unresolved emotions. Mumbi looked between them, her heart torn. The idea of losing Nia was a weight she couldn't bear, yet the betrayal cut deep. But as Nia spoke, her voice steady and filled with conviction, Mumbi felt something shift within her. I don't want to hurt you, Mama, but I won't live in your shadow anymore. I deserve to be happy, and so does Okello. However, Mumbi took a step back, her expression hardening. I will not accept this. You have betrayed me, and I will not tolerate it. You are no longer my daughter. Nia's heart sank, the words piercing her like a blade. Mama, please, I didn't mean to hurt you. Enough, Mumbi shouted, her voice reverberating through the house. You have chosen him over me. You have brought shame upon our family. I will not let you destroy what little dignity I have left. Nia felt the weight of her mother's fury crush her spirit. I love him, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Can't you see that? Mumbi shook her head, her face a mask of disappointment. Love? This is not love. This is betrayal. You are no longer welcome in my home. The finality of Mumbi's words echoed in the silence, and Nia felt as if the ground beneath her had crumbled away. She turned to Okello, who stood quietly by, his face filled with concern and sorrow. Mama, please, Nia begged, desperation creeping into her voice. I don't want to lose you. But Mumbi crossed her arms, her face set in determination. You already have, Nia. You made your choice. With that, Mumbi turned away, leaving Nia standing in the remnants of what had once been a home. Okello stepped closer, wrapping his arms around her, offering comfort amidst the storm. "We'll get through this," he whispered, his voice low and reassuring. "We'll build our own life, just you and me." Nia nodded, a sense of resolve beginning to form within her. Though she had lost her mother, she wouldn't let it break her. She would forge her own path. Together with Okello, she would create a new beginning, a life unshackled by the bitterness that had defined her childhood. As the days turned into weeks, Nia and Okello embraced their new life together. They found an apartment, a small but cozy space that felt like a sanctuary away from Mumbi's judgment. They celebrated their love openly, holding hands and laughing freely, no longer hiding in the shadows. But as time passed, cracks began to appear in their relationship. The thrill of rebellion faded, replaced by the reality of their choices. Nia soon realized that Okello was not the man she had hoped he would be. The charm that had drawn her in also made him restless. He often spoke of his dreams and aspirations, but those dreams began to drift away from her, leaving her feeling abandoned. One fateful afternoon, Nia returned home from work, her heart light with excitement to share plans for their future. As she opened the door, she was met with an unexpected sight: Okello asleep in their bed, wrapped in the arms of another woman. Nia stood frozen, shock coursing through her veins. The warmth of their shared life, the dreams they had built together, now felt like a distant memory. Nia's heart shattered, rage and pain crashing over her like waves. "Okello!" she cried, her voice trembling as she stepped into the room. He stirred awake, confusion washing over his face as he sat up. When he saw Nia, his expression shifted from surprise to guilt. "Nia, Save it," she interrupted, fury igniting her words. "How could you do this to me, after everything we've been through?" The woman quickly dressed and slipped out of the room, leaving Nia and Okello alone in the suffocating silence. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Okello stammered, his voice shaky. "It was a mistake." "A mistake?" Nia spat, her heart racing with betrayal. "This isn't just a mistake, Okello. This is a choice. You chose her." His eyes reflected remorse, but it only fueled her anger. "I thought we could make this work, but it's not what I expected. I thought I could be happy with you, but I feel trapped." Nia's heart plummeted, the weight of his words suffocating her. "You don't get to choose who you love after what we've built together," she said, her voice breaking. "You've broken me." As the reality of his betrayal sunk in, Nia realized that the life she had fought for was crumbling beneath her. The dreams they had shared felt like ashes in her hands, and the man she had loved was slipping away. Nia turned on her heel and walked out, leaving Okello to grapple with the mess they had created. But as she stepped into the cool evening air, the gravity of her decisions settled heavily on her chest. She felt the churning mix of anger and sorrow, both for Okello and for Mumbi, who had been betrayed by both of them. Nia paused outside, taking a deep breath as she fought back tears. The realization of her mother's heartbreak washed over her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she had traded one loss for another. She had gained nothing but a fleeting happiness built on lies, and now, with Okello slipping away, she was left feeling utterly alone. As the memories of Mumbi flooded her mind, Nia understood that she could no longer ignore the damage she had done to their relationship. This wasn't just about Okello's betrayal. It was about the pain she had caused her mother, the trust she had shattered. In that moment, she knew she would have to confront the consequences of her actions. Nia stood outside her mother's house, heart racing and palms clammy as she gathered the courage to knock on the door. She could only imagine the pain her mother had felt, how deeply her actions must have cut. Taking a deep breath, Nia raised her hand and knocked. The sound echoed in the silence, each thud amplifying her anxiety. Moments later, Mumbi opened the door, her expression a mix of surprise and guardedness. "Mama," Nia whispered, her voice trembling. "Can we talk?" Mumbi's eyes narrowed, and she stepped back, her posture rigid. "What do you want, Nia?" There was no warmth in her tone, only a frigid distance that pierced through Nia's heart. Nia hesitated, searching for the right words. "I'm so sorry for what I've done. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could find happiness away from you, but I see now that I only brought more pain." Mumbi's eyes flashed with anger and hurt, but she remained silent, waiting for Nia to continue. "Okello betrayed me," Nia said, her voice breaking. "I thought he was my way out, my chance to be free, but he left me for someone else. I thought I could reclaim my life, but all I've done is ruin ours. I need you to know how deeply I regret my choices." Mumbi's expression remained hard. "You made your choice, Nia. You chose him over me, and now you're paying the price." Tears brimmed in Nia's eyes, but she fought them back, desperate to maintain her composure. "I know I hurt you. I was so consumed by my anger and desire for freedom that I didn't consider the consequences. I see now how selfish I was." At the mention of her pain, Mumbi's expression softened, if only slightly. "You think this is easy for me? You think I wanted to lose you, my only daughter, to this betrayal? I trusted you, and you chose to betray that trust." Nia's heart sank, knowing she couldn't undo the damage she had done. "I know I can't change the past, but I'm here, ready to take responsibility for my actions. I want to repair our relationship, Mama. I miss you." Mumbi crossed her arms, her gaze hardening again. "You say you want to repair our relationship, but how can I trust you? You went behind my back, and for what? To find happiness with a man who never valued you?" Nia's heart clenched at the truth in her mother's words. "I realize that now, and it hurts more than I can express. I thought I was finding my own path, but I was only digging myself deeper into a pit of despair. I understand if you can't forgive me, but I'm asking for a chance to prove I can be better." The silence that followed felt heavy, filled with years of unspoken hurt and resentment. Mumbi's gaze softened slightly, but she still held her ground. "You've changed, Nia. You're not the girl I raised. You've become someone I don't recognize, and that's painful." "I know," Nia replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I want to change back. I want to be the daughter you can be proud of. Please give me that chance." Mumbi took a step back, her shoulders slumping. "You don't understand how deeply you've wounded me. It will take time to heal, if it's even possible." "I'm willing to wait," Nia said, her voice steady. "I'll do whatever it takes to regain your trust." Mumbi sighed, her expression a mix of pain and contemplation. "This won't be easy, Nia. Trust is fragile and you've broken it. But I see that you're sincere. I'll try for now, but it's going to take a long time." Nia felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, but she knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. "Thank you, Mama. I'll do everything I can to show you I'm worthy of your love again." As Mumbi stepped aside, allowing Nia to enter the house, it felt like a small victory, a fragile bridge beginning to mend. The space between them was still filled with hurt, but the air buzzed with the possibility of healing. Nia knew it would take time, patience, and effort, but she was ready to reclaim her place in her mother's life. Yet in the back of her mind lingered the sting of Okello's betrayal, a reminder that while she might find a way back to her mother, the scars of her past choices would remain. As she entered the house, Nia felt a resolve solidify within her. She would rise from the ashes of her mistakes, stronger and more determined than ever, ready to embrace the journey of healing, both for herself and for Mumbi. As our story concludes, we are left with some questions. Can Nia and Mumby ever truly rebuild their bond, or will the pain of betrayal linger between them forever? Will Nia find a way to heal from Okello's betrayal, or will the scars of her choices shape the rest of her life? Was this all a painful lesson in love and loyalty, or was it the path she was always meant to walk? In the end, can broken trust ever be fully repaired? Or are some mistakes simply too great to overcome? Share your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss how this story resonated with you. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel for more intriguing stories. Thank you for watching.